Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Neha Pandey from the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, Banaras Hindu University. Today we are going to talk on module Status of Women in Medieval Period under the paper Women, Theatre and Fine Arts. The objectives of this module are to help the students understand the status of women in medieval period, to elaborate the issues related to women, such as their education, to find out some important women of medieval era and their contribution, to explore the problems and issues faced by these women during medieval era, life happening and incidences in the lives of Muslim women of medieval period. According to ancient Hindu text and tradition, until about 500 BC, women in India enjoyed considerable freedom. But during the next 1,000 years, women's position gradually deteriorated. Educational and religious parity was denied to them, and widow remarriage was forbidden. In fact, the status of women started degenerating in the post Vedic age because of the conception of purity and pollution and restriction of intercaste marriages. Child marriage had started in the Smriti age. During this period, a woman's husband was regarded as God. During the Middle Ages, the position of women in Hindu society further degenerated. A number of problems arose for Hindu women in the Mughal period. The first Muslim invasion took place in India in the 8th century. During this period, the Hindu society was engaged in evolving under the leadership of Shankaracharya, a technique to face the expanding Buddhism. Shankaracharya re-emphasized the supremacy of Veda to counter the spread of Buddhism, and the Vedas had given a status of equality to women. India experienced a second Muslim invasion in the 11th century when Muhammad Ghazni conquered India. From this period till the middle of the 18th century, when the British rule was established in the country, the breakdown of social institutions, the vast migration of people, and the economic depression in the country contributed to a general decline of social life, particularly among the women. The Parda system was followed, which resulted in seclusion of women. Education of women in whatever form came to be stopped. Child marriage was started. During this period, the inhuman practice of sati pratha was in vogue. Parda pratha, sati pratha, child marriage, girl killing, polygamy were the main social evils of this period. However, during the 15th century, the situation underwent some change. The Bhakti movement, organized by Ramanujacharya during this period, introduced new trends in the social and religious life of Indian women. The saints like Chaitanya, Nanak, Kabir, Meera, Ramdas, and Tulsi stood for the right of women to religious worship. Hence, this movement at least provided religious freedom to women. As a result of this freedom, they secured certain social freedom also. The saints encouraged women to read religious books and to educate themselves. Although the Bhakti movement gave a new life to women, this movement did not bring any substantial change in economic status of women. Hence, women continued to hold low status in the society. Therefore, the status of women was not stable in the medieval period. On the one side, women was ruling their Jagir kingdom and was accepted as king in spite of being a woman, and on the other hand, they were treated as the main recourse of Sati tradition. In this module, we will be studying about the main rulers of medieval India. Razia al-Din, throne name Jalal-ud-Din Razia, usually referred to in history as Razia Sultana, was born in Badaun and was the Sultan of Delhi in India from 1236 to May 1240. Like some other Muslim princes of the time, she was trained to lead armies and administer kingdoms if necessary. Razia Sultan was the only women ruler of both the Sultanate and the Mughal period, although other women ruled from behind the scenes. Razia refused to be addressed as Sultana because it meant wife or consort of a sultan. She would answer only to the title Sultan. Razia succeeded her father, Shams ud-Din Iltutmish, to the Sultanate of Delhi in 1236. Iltutmish became the first sultan to appoint a woman as his successor when he designated his daughter Razia as his heir apparent. Razia was the first and the last female ruler of Delhi Sultanate. But the Muslim nobility had no intention of acceding to Iltutmish's appointment of a woman as heir, and after the Sultan died on Wednesday 30 April 1236, Razia's brother Ruknuddin Firuz was elevated to the throne instead. Ruknuddin's reign was short, with Iltutmish's widow Shah Turkan for all practical purposes running the government. Ruknuddin abandoned himself to the pursuit of personal pleasure and debauchery to the outrage of the citizenry. On November 9, 1236, both Ruknuddin and his mother Shah Turkan were assassinated after only 6 months in power. With reluctance, the nobility agreed to allow Razia to reign as Sultan of Delhi. She abandoned the veil and adopted masculine attire. She an efficient ruler and possessed all the qualities of a monarch. According to Minhaj-e-Shiraj, she was sagacious, just, beneficent, the patron of the learned, a dispenser of justice, the cherisher of her subjects and of warlike talent, and endowed with all the admirable attributes and qualifications necessary for a king. As a child and adolescent, Razia had little contact with the women of the harem, so she had not learned the customary behavior of women in the Muslim society that she was born into. Even before she became sultan, she was reportedly preoccupied with the affairs of state during her father's reign. A shrewd politician, Razia managed to keep the nobles in check while enlisting the support of the army and the populace. Her greatest accomplishment on the political front was to manipulate rebel factions into opposing each other. At that point, Razia seemed destined to become one of the most powerful rulers of the Delhi Sultanate. But Razia miscounted the consequences that a relationship with one of her advisors, Jamaluddin Yaqut, an Abyssinian Siddi slave, would have for her reign. According to some accounts, Razia and Yaqut were lovers. Other sources simply identify them as close confidants. In any case, before long she had aroused the jealousy of the Turkic nobility by the favoritism she displayed toward Yaqut, who was not a Turk, when she appointed him to be superintendent of the stables. Eventually, a childhood friend named Malik Altunia, the governor of Bhatinda, joined a rebellion by other provincial governors who refused to accept Razia's authority. A battle between Razia and Altunia ensued, with the result that Yaqut was killed and Razia taken prisoner. She was incarcerated in April 1240 at Kila Mubarak at Bhatinda. While in prison, Razia Sultan was allowed to go to Haji Ratan Mosque to offer prayers on Fridays in a special palki. She was released in August 1240. To escape death, Razia agreed to marry Altunia. Meanwhile, Razia's brother, Muizuddin Bahram Shah, had usurped the throne. After Altunia and Razia undertook to take back the Sultanate from Bahram through battle, both Razia and her husband were defeated on the 24th of Rabi al-Awwal AH 638, that is October 1240. They fled Delhi and reached Kathal the next day, where their remaining forces abandoned them. They both fell into the hands of Jats and were robbed and killed on the 25th of Rabi al-Awwal, age 638. The date corresponds to October 13, 1240. Bahram, for his part, reigned from 1240 to 1242 but would be dethroned for incompetence. Noor Jahan, born as Mehrun Nisa, was Empress of the Mughal Empire as the chief consort of Emperor Jahangir. A strong, charismatic, and well educated woman, She is considered to be one of the most powerful and influential women of the 17th century Mughal Empire. She was the 20th and favorite wife of Emperor Jahangir, who ruled the Mughal Empire at the peak of his power and supremacy. The story of the couple's infatuation for each other and the relationship that developed between them has been inspiration to many legends. Noor Jahan was able to wield a significant amount of imperial influence and was often considered at the time to be the real power behind the throne. She remains historically significant for not only the sheer political power she maintained, but also for her contribution to Indian culture, charity work, commercial trade, and her ability to rule with an iron fist. She was the aunt of Empress Mumtaz Mahal, for whom the future Emperor Shah Jahan built the Taj Mahal. Furthermore, she is the only Mughal empress to have her name struck in silver coins. Noor Jahan possessed great physical strength and courage. She often went on hunting tours with her husband and was known for her marksmanship and boldness in hunting ferocious tiger. She is reported to have taken down 4 tigers with 6 bullets during one hunt. According to Sayyid Ahmad Khan, this feat inspired a poet to declaim a spontaneous couplet in her honor. Noor Jahan's courage, bravery, and administrative skill would come in handy throughout her reign, as she had to defend the empire's borders in her husband's absence and deal with family feuds, rebel uprising, and a war of succession brought on by the failure of Jahangir to name an heir before he died on October 28, 1627. Tensions between Noor Jahan and Jahangir's third son, the then Prince Khurram, and future Shah Jahan, has been uneasy from the start. Prince Khurram resented the influence Noor Jahan held over his father and was angered at having to play a second fiddle to her favorite Shahryar, his half brother and her son in law. When the Persians besieged Kandahar, Noor Jahan was at the helm of the affairs. She ordered Prince Khurram to march for Kandahar, but he refused. As a result of Prince Khurram's refusal to obey Noor Jahan's order, Kandahar was lost to the Persians after a 45-day siege. Prince Khurram feared that, in his absence, Noor Jahan would attempt to poison his father against him and convince Jahangir to name Shahryar the heir in his place. This fear brought Prince Khurram to rebel against his father rather than fight against the Persians. In 1622, Prince Khurram raised an army and marched against his father and Noor Jahan. The rebellion was quelled by Jahangir's forces and the prince was forced to surrender unconditionally. Although he was forgiven for his errors in 1626, tensions between Noor Jahan and her stepson would continue to grow underneath the surface. In 1626, the Emperor Jahangir was captured by rebels while on his way to Kashmir. The rebel leader, Mahabat Khan, had hoped to stage a coup against Jahangir. Noor Jahan intervened to get her husband released. Noor Jahan ordered the ministers to organize an attack on the enemy, and in order to rescue the emperor, she herself would lead one of the units by administering commands from the top of a war elephant. During the battle, Noor Jahan's mount was hit and the imperial army fell at her feet. Realizing her plan had failed, Noor Jahan surrendered to Mahabat Khan and was placed in captivity with her husband. Unfortunately for the rebels, Mahabat Khan failed to recognize the creativity and intellect of Noor Jahan, as she soon was able to organize an escape and raise an army right under his very nose. Shortly after being rescued, Jahangir died on October 28, 1627. Jahangir's death sparked a war of succession between his remaining competent sons, Prince Khurram, who had proclaimed himself Shah Jahan, and Prince Shahryar. Jahangir's eldest son, Khusro, had rebelled against the emperor and was blinded as a result. He was later killed during an uprising in Deccan. Jahangir's second son, Parvez, was weak and addicted to alcohol. Afraid that if Shah Jahan was made emperor, she would lose her influence in court, Noor Jahan chose to side with Shahryar, who she believed could be manipulated much more easily. During the first half of the war, it appeared as though Shahryar and Noor Jahan might turn out to be the victors. However, the two were betrayed by Noor Jahan's brother. Asaf Khan was jealous of his sister's power and sided with Shah Jahan, who was married to Asaf Khan's daughter Mumtaz Mahal. While Asaf Khan forced Noor Jahan into confinement, Shah Jahan defeated Shahryar's troops and ordered his execution. In 1628, Shah Jahan became the new Mughal emperor. Mumtaz Mahal, meaning the chosen one of the palace, was a Mughal empress and chief consort of Emperor Shah Jahan. The Taj Mahal in Agra was constructed by her husband as her final resting place. She was born in Arjuman Banu Begum in Agra in a family of Persian nobility as a daughter of Abdul Hassan Asaf Khan. Later, she became the daughter in law of Empress Noor Jahan, the wife of the Emperor Jahangir. Arjuman Banu Begum was married at the age of 19 in 1612 to Prince Khurram, later known as Emperor Shah Jahan, who conferred upon her the title Mumtaz Mahal. Though betrothed to Shah Jahan in 1607, she ultimately became the second wife in 1612 and was his favorite. She died in Behranpur in the Deccan during the birth of their 14th child, a daughter named Gauhar Begum. Mumtaz Mahal mothered 14 children by Shah Jahan, including Aurangzeb, the imperial prince Dara Shikoh, and heir apparent anointed by Shah Jahan, who temporarily succeeded Shah Jahan until deposed by his brother Aurangzeb and Jahanara Begum, the imperial princess. Shehzadi Jahanara Begum Sahib was the eldest surviving daughter of Emperor Shah Jahan and Empress Mumtaz Mahal. She was also the older sister of her father's successor and the sixth Mughal emperor, Aurangzeb. Upon the death of Mumtaz in 1631, Jahanara, aged 17, took the place of her mother as First Lady of the Empire, despite her father having three other wives. As well as caring for her younger brother and sister, she is also credited with bringing her father out of mourning and restoring normality to a court darkened by her mother's death and her father's grief. One of her tasks after the death of her mother was to oversee the betrothal and wedding of her brother Dara Shikoh to Begum Nadira Banu, which had been originally planned by Mumtaz Mahal but postponed by her death. Jahanara's mother, Arjuman Banu Begum, Empress Mumtaz Mahal, died from complications of giving birth to her 14th child sometime after the birth. Mumtaz Mahal's personal fortune, valued 1 crore rupees, was divided by Shah Jahan between Jahanara Begum and the rest of her surviving children. Her father frequently took her advice and trusted her with charge of the imperial seal. Shah Jahan's fondness for his daughter was reflected in the multiple titles that she bestowed upon her, which included Shabat al Zamani and Padishah Begum or Begum Sahib. Her power was much that, unlike the other royal princes, she was allowed to live in her own palace outside the confines of the Agra fort. In 1644, just days after her 30th birthday, Jahanara's garments, doused in fragrant perfume oil, caught fire, leaving Jahanara seriously injured. Shah Jahan, so concerned for the welfare of his favorite daughter, nursed her back to health himself. After the accident, the princess went on a pilgrimage to Moinuddin Chisti's shrine in Ajmer. After her recovery, Shah Jahan gave her rare gems and jewelry and bestowed upon her revenues of the port of Surat. She later visited Ajmer, following the example set by her great-grandfather Akbar. There is record of disagreement between Jahanara and her younger brother Aurangzeb, who she had referred to as the White Serpent, also referring to him as a tiger and panther. There also seemed to be some sort of tension with her younger sister, Roshanara Begum, 3 years her junior, who seemingly resented her elder sister's position as First Lady of the Empire. Jahanara took the side of Dara Shikoh in the struggle for the throne. Dara had promised her to lift the ban on marriage for Mughal princes, which Akbar had introduced. Had he triumphed, her power would likely have continued. On Aurangzeb's ascent to throne, Jahanara joined her father in imprisonment at the Agra fort, where she devoted herself to his care until his death. After the death of their father, Jahanara and Aurangzeb were reconciled. He gave her the title Empress of Princes and she replaced Roshanara as First Lady. Jahanara was soon secure enough in her position to occasionally argue with Aurangzeb and have certain special privileges which other women did not possess. She argued against Aurangzeb's strict regulation of public life in accordance with his conservative religious belief and his decision in 1679 to restore the poll tax on non Muslim, which she said would alienate his Hindu subject. Upon her death, Aurangzeb gave her the title Shaibat uz Zamani. Jahanara is buried in a tomb in the Nizamuddin Dargah complex in New Delhi, which is considered remarkable for its simplicity. Maryam uz Zamani Begum, a title bestowed to Heer Kuwari, that is, Hira Kuwari Harka Bai alias Jodha Bai, was an empress of the Mughal Empire. She was the first chief Rajput wife of Emperor Akbar, though Akbar already had two other chief Mughal wives and many other wives from different religions before his marriage to the Rajput princess Heer Kuwari, and the mother of the next Mughal emperor Jahangir. She was also the grandmother of the following Mughal emperor Shah Jahan. Maryam uz Zamani was referred to as the Queen Mother of Hindustan during the reign of the great Mughal Emperor Akbar and also during her son Emperor Jahangir's reign. She was the longest serving Hindu Mughal empress. Her tenure from Feb 6, 1562 to October 27, 1605 is that of over 43 years. Her marriage to Akbar led to a gradual shift in his religious and social policy. Akbar's marriage with Rajkumari Heer Kuwari was a very important event in Mughal history. She is widely regarded in modern Indian historiography as exemplifying Akbar's and the Mughals' tolerance of religious differences and their inclusive policies within an expanding multi ethnic and multi denominational empire. Jodhabai. There is a popular perception that the wife of Akbar, mother of Jahangir, was also known as Jodhabai. Her name, as in Mughal chronicles, was Maryam uz Zamani Tuske Jahangiri. The autobiography of Jahangir doesn't mention Jodhabai nor Harkabai or Heer Kuwari. Therein, she is referred to as Maryam uz Zamani. Neither the Akbarnama nor any historical text from the period refer to her as Jodhabai. According to Professor Shireen Muswi, a historian of Aligarh Muslim University, the name Jodhabai was first used to refer to Akbar's wife in the 18th and 19th centuries in historical writings. According to the historian Imtiaz Ahmad, the director of Khuda Bakhsh Oriental Public Library in Patna, it was Lieutenant Colonel James Todd who first mentioned Jodhabai in his book Annals and Antiquities of Rajasthan. In the Akbarnama, there is mention of Akbar marrying a Rajput princess of Amer, but her name is not Jodha, says historian and director of Khuda Bakhsh Oriental Public Library Imtiaz Ahmed. She is referred to as Maryam Zamani. This is a title and not a name. It further says that Maryam Zamani is a title referred to the lady who gave birth to Prince Salim, who became Emperor Jahangir, but the name Jodha is not mentioned anywhere. Professor N.R. Farooqi, a historian of Allahabad Central University, states that Jodhabai was not the name of Akbar's queen, instead, it was the name of Jahangir's wife, Taj Bibi Bilkis Makani, the princess of Jodhpur, whose real name was Jagat Gosai. Chand Bibi was a Muslim woman warrior. She acted as the regent of Bijapur and regent of Ahmednagar. Chand Bibi is best known for defending Ahmednagar against the Mughal forces of Emperor Akbar in 1595. Defense of Ahmednagar. Ahmednagar was invaded by the Mughals in November 1595. Chand Bibi took the leadership in Ahmednagar and defended the Ahmednagar fort successfully. Later, Shah Murad sent an envoy to Chand Bibi offering to raise the siege in return for the secession of Berar. Chand Bibi's troops were suffering from famine. In 1596, she decided to make peace by ceding Berar to Murad, who retreated. Chand Bibi appealed to her nephews Ibrahim Adil Shah II of Bijapur and Muhammad Quli Qutub Shah of Golconda, asking them to unite against the Mughal forces. Ibrahim Adil Shah II sent a contingent of 25,000 men under Sohail Khan, which was joined by the remainder of Yekhlas Khan's force at Naidurg. Later, it was joined by a contingent of 6,000 men from Golconda. Chand Bibi had appointed Muhammad Khan as the minister, but he proved treacherous. He made overtures to the Khan Khanan, offering to surrender the whole Sultanate to the Mughals. Meanwhile, Khan Khanan started taking possession of districts that were not included in the cession of Berar. Sohail Khan, who was returning to Bijapur, was ordered to come back and attack Khan Khanan's Mughal forces. The Mughal forces under Khan Khanan and Mirza Shah Rukh left Murad's camp at Shahpur and Berar and encountered the combined forces of Bijapur, Ahmednagar, and Golconda under the Sohail Khan near Sonpat on the banks of Godavari River. In a fierce battle on Feb 8 and 9, 1597, the Mughals won. In spite of their victory, the Mughal forces were too weak to pursue their attack and returned to Shahpur. One of their commanders, Raza Ali Khan, was killed in the battle, and there were frequent disputes between other commanders. Due to these disputes, Khan Khanan was recalled by Akbar in 1597. Prince Murad died shortly thereafter. Akbar then sent his son Daniel and Khan Khanan with fresh troops. Akbar himself followed and encamped at Behrampur. In Ahmednagar, Chand Bibi's authority was being resisted by the newly appointed minister Nehang Khan. Nehang Khan had captured the town of Beed, taking advantage of Khan Khanan's absence and of the rainy season. In 1599, Akbar dispatched Daniel's Mirza, Yusuf Khan, and Khan Khanans to relieve the governor of Beed. Nehang Khan also marched to seize the Jaipur Kotli Pass, expecting the Mughals to meet him there. However, Daniel avoided the pass and reached Ahmednagar fort. His forces laid siege to the fort. Chand Bibi again defended the fort bravely. However, she could not bring about an effective resistance and decided to negotiate terms with Daniel. Also, it is considered that there was an internal strife among the Sardar in the Nizam Shashi kingdoms. So, Hamid Khan, a nobleman, exaggerated and spread the false news that Chand Bibi was in treaty with the Mughals. According to another version, Jita Khan, an Anak valet of Chand Bibi, thought that her decision to negotiate with the Mughals was treacherous and spread the news that Chand Bibi was a quisling. Chand Bibi was then killed by an enraged mob of her own troops. After her death and a siege of 4 months and 4 days, Ahmednagar was captured by the Mughal forces of Daniel and Mirza Yusuf Khan. Rani Roopmati, also spelled as Roopmati or Roopmati, was a Hindu singer of Malwa. Sultan Baz Bahadur and Roopmati fell in love with each other and were married according to Hindu and Muslim rites. Adham Khan was prompted to conquer Mandu party due to Roopmati's beauty. When Adham Khan marched on the fort, Baz Bahadur met him with his small force and was defeated. Roopmati poisoned herself, thus ending the magical love story which was steeped in music, poetry, romance, war, and death. This romance is considered a legend by some while others considered it to be true. Unfortunately, the romance of the Muslim prince and Hindu shepherdess was doomed to failure. The great Mughal Akbar decided to invade Mandu and capture Roopmati and Baz Bahadur. Akbar sent Adham Khan to capture Mandu, and Baz Bahadur went to challenge him with his small army. No match for the great Mughal army, Mandu was easily defeated. Baz Bahadur fled to Chittorgarh to seek help. As Adham Khan came to Mandu, was surprised by the beauty of Roopmati, and Rani Roopmati stoically poisoned herself to avoid capture. Thus ended the magical love story steeped in music, poetry, and beauty. Meera, also known as Meerabai, was a 16th century Hindu mystic poetess and devotee of Krishna. She is celebrated as a poet and has been definitively claimed by the North Indian Hindu tradition of Bhakti saint. Meera was born in a royal family of Rajasthan. She is mentioned in Bhaktamil, confirming that she was widely known and a cherished figure in the Indian Bhakti movement culture by about 1600 CE. Most regions about Meera mention her fearless disregard for social and family convention, her devotion to God Krishna, her treating Krishna as her lover and husband, and she being persecuted by her in laws for her religious devotion. She has been the subject of numerous folk tales and hagiographic legends which are inconsistent or widely different in detail. Thousands of devotional poems in passionate praise of Lord Krishna are attributed to Meera in the Indian tradition, but just a few hundred are believed to be authentic by scholars, and the earliest written records suggest that, except for two poems, most were written down only in the 18th century. Many poems attributed to Meera were likely composed later by others who admired Meera. These poems are commonly known as bhajan and are popular across India. Hindu temples, such as in Chittorgarh Fort, are dedicated to Mirabai's memory. Legends about Meera's life, of contested authenticity, have been the subject of movies, comic strips, and other popular literature in modern times. So students, let's now summarize what we have learned in this module. In this module, we have seen how women emerged as rulers and what problems they faced, how they battled at all the fronts and overcome those. We studied about some of the prominent women rulers and the context in which they ruled. Also, how these women emerged successful and their stories continue to inspire generations after generations. We studied how Noor Jahan was able to wield a significant amount of imperial influence and was often considered at the time to be the real power behind the throne. She remains historically significant for not only the sheer political power she maintained, a feat no Mughal women before her had ever achieved, but also